For months now, Sunday Morning has been working with our reporting partners at the Marshall Project, investigating the impact a false positive drug test can have on pregnant women and new mothers. Suffice it to say, that sort of error can be devastating, as Erin Moriarty explains.
How important are your children?
They are everything to me.
Hey, Dow. Hi.
Spend any time with Katie in her Huntsville, Alabama home, and it's immediately clear what matters most to her.
You gonna put this on my lap? Yeah.
It's hard to even remember life before I had children because they really are the thing that I wake up and I care about.
And that's why what happened to this mother and thousands of others like her is so troubling. Last spring, Katie, she asked that we use only her first name, went into a hospital to give birth to her second child. She came out with a very real fear that her newborn could be taken away.
It blew my mind, not only that it happened, but the extent that it was taken once it did happen.
All because of the results of one urine drug test.
I didn't even take any over-the-counter medicine. I didn't take Tylenol, so I had nothing to hide.
But later, a nurse came in with startling news.
She told me that my drug screen tested positive for opioids, for morphine specifically.
Katie says the test results didn't make sense. She had never taken any opiates or illicit drugs. But that day before coming to the hospital, she did have an everything bagel, and that bagel contained poppy seeds. Poppy seeds come from the same plant that produces opiates like morphine and codeine. And the fact that they can trigger a false positive test result is well known and documented. The website for the U.S. Department of Defense specifically warned service members not to eat the same kind of bagel Katie ate.
My husband went and bought the receipt for the bagel with a timestamp. He offered to get the camera footage of me physically eating the bagel inside the shop.
But the hospital still reported Katie's presumptive positive drug test to Alabama child welfare officials. And just hours after Katie gave birth, a state social worker came to her room and asked her to sign a safety plan.
She said that until I was investigated and made sure that I didn't have drug issues, it was for the safety of the children. I asked her what would happen if I did not sign that safety plan, and she said they would be taking both children right then.
Oh, there's just so much wrong there. So much wrong. So much wrong. It is the most beautiful thing to be a part of in medicine.
Dr. Kelly Butler is a family medicine doctor in San Diego, California.
There was someone who ordered the test who was wrong. There was someone who interpreted the test who was wrong. There's someone who made the call to CPS that was wrong.
The policy of drug testing pregnant women, says Dr. Butler, often without their knowledge or consent, dates back to the 1980s, during what was called the crack epidemic, and in more recent years, the opioid epidemic. But Dr. Butler says universally testing pregnant women was bad policy then, and it is bad policy now.
Because let's also be clear, one positive urine toxicology does not equal a substance use disorder. All it says is this person was exposed to something that made this test positive.
And not necessarily drugs.
Hello, as is the case of this everything bagel, which probably had poppy seeds, which often can be a false positive for opiates. That's entirely unfair.
The problem is that urine drug tests are notoriously unreliable. A joint Sunday Morning Marshall Project investigation reveals that they are easily misinterpreted and often wrong, with false positives as high as 50%. And it's not just poppy seeds, says Dr. Butler, that can lead to faulty test results.
There are a whole suite of medications, foods, and exposures that are perfectly fine to be using in pregnancy that can result in false positives, absolutely.
But whether or not the test result is accurate, and even before a second, more definitive test can be performed, hospitals in more than half the states in this country are required by law to alert Child Protective Services of a positive test or potential exposure. That's tens of thousands of reported infants every year, often resulting in an investigation that can turn a family's life upside down.
I was not allowed to be at home alone with the children at all.
For nearly a month, Katie was only allowed supervised time with her children, and although she was breastfeeding, she had to leave her house at night.
I would leave the house and I would scream in my car because I was so devastated to leave her. Sorry.
No, it's okay. What was that like?
It was torture. I mean, it was pain I've never felt before.
Katie, did you feel that there was a risk that if you didn't follow everything you were told to do, you could lose your children?
Absolutely.
In a statement, Crestwood Medical Center says it conducts a urine drug screen on all patients admitted for labor and delivery and immediately orders a confirmatory test after a positive result. But at the same time, also notifies the Department of Human Resources pursuant to Alabama state law. But perhaps more unsettling, a mother can be investigated if she or the baby tests positive for opiates, even when the medication was given to her by the hospital during labor. When you went to your prenatal appointments, they would screen you for drugs, right?
Yes.
And did you ever have a positive drug screen?
No. What are you doing?
Victoria Villanueva was 18 years old in 2017 when she gave birth to her first baby in an Indiana hospital.
You okay?
Her urine drug test was negative,
Oh.
but later she was given morphine during labor to ease pain. So no one should have been surprised when her newborn baby tested positive for the same medication. But that didn't stop the hospital from reporting her to the State Department of Children's Services, or DCS.
Just because somebody gets medicine, that means that there's a potential that DCS is going to come and possibly take my child when I didn't do anything wrong.
Although the morphine was noted in her medical records, she was still required to sign a safety plan. She believes that it may have been because she admitted to once experimenting with drugs 2 years earlier.
I felt like that they were really trying to judge me for something that I wasn't and that I'm not.
Over the next month, a social worker came regularly to check on her and inspect her home. She could still remember, she says, the fear she felt those first weeks of motherhood.
I was robbed of that experience to actually be able to enjoy my child, honestly, because I was just too busy worrying about DCS and them possibly taking my daughter away from me.
A pregnant patient has fewer rights than anybody working at that hospital.
Lynn Paltrow is the founder of Pregnancy Justice. Paltrow was part of a legal team that won a 2001 Supreme Court decision that ruled it unconstitutional to use drug test results to criminally prosecute pregnant women. But hospitals can still report mothers to child welfare officials. Paltrow says a single test result should never be relied on to report a mother,
I brought this with me, I always do.
and makes her point in a rather novel way.
Here's a cup of my urine. If I give it to you, you could test it. Maybe it's positive. But it can't tell you if I'm addicted, I'm dependent. And yet, for thousands of women in this country and families, probably millions, a drug test is used as a parenting test.
But somebody could say, when a woman comes in to give birth, she's not the only patient, so is the baby. So doesn't it make sense to make sure she's not using drugs that might affect this baby and might affect the birth?
Oh, we should be. But screening doesn't have to equal a urine toxicology. Screening can be a very simple battery of verbal questions. Do you use?
Verbal screening is also what most major medical groups, including the American Medical Association, recommend.
I think it's wrong. When you're ruining precious moments of people's lives, you can't just shrug it off and say, well, sorry you fell in the cracks.
Katie says that after she and her husband hired an attorney, the Alabama Department of Human Resources closed the case. So I hate to bring this up, but you're pregnant again.
Yes, I'm terrified. I brought up with my new doctor opting out of a drug screen, and I was told that the hospital will report me to DHR if I decline to do a drug screen. So I feel trapped. I mean, this all just happened a year ago, so it's very fresh, and I'm very wounded still from it and terrified of it happening again.